know you're tired. I know you're hurting. And I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational. But that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. Right on. Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90. Dig. On the center. On the center. Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Judge Mathis. But I have a special handle today because I'm coming to you live from my cell phone at work. So I'm at work, Judge, today. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at TiltMoney. And we had to bring in a special guest. First day of free agency, we had to bring in my best friend, Jeff Landers. You can find him on Twitter at Jeff Landers, a real original name. The trio of us, I guess, will be called the Bills guys for today. And we are presented, as always, by the Buffalo Fanatics and Manscaped. So, boys, free agency, it is here. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been friggin' mile a minute. It is the word frenzy. I don't even think describes it. But how are we doing today, Dave?
Doing good. I mean, man, news just keeps dropping in our laps, I guess, right? It was kind of unfortunate for us on Monday because we were sitting there till like about 10:30, just kind of stalling, waiting for some news to happen. And obviously Monday, the only news we had was the Matakevich extension, but a lot has happened since then. You know, and we're going to talk about it all today. Trubisky news today, Sanders, obviously. So yeah, lot to talk about today. I'm doing well, man. It's other than hopefully avoiding getting hit by a tornado here in the next hour, then I'm doing pretty good.
How about you, Jeff? How is this nice little vacation you've been on without the tailgate to keep you occupied?
I've been grinding, 12-hour days, 6 days a week, sleeping on Sundays, just grinding at work. And, I had a hard breakup with the football season. I didn't listen to any content for 2 weeks. I got into, the stocks right about as GameStop was going crazy. Did not get into GameStop, but I started paying attention to what was going on in the stock market as a distraction from football season because that was a girlfriend that I thought was very, very promising. I thought there might have been a ring involved with that one, but had a hard breakup, basically up until the Super Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, there's, no more football for the rest of February. Not a big fan of the Underwear Olympics, which they really didn't have this year. So, I'm glad to be getting back into it with the, as you guys call, frenzy. We got March Madness starting tonight. I'm excited for my Bonnies. So, but hey, glad to be wearing the Josh Allen jersey again.
Hey, yeah, and that is going to be a topic of conversation tonight for sure. Our franchise quarterback. Joshua Richardson coming in with a comment here. He says, how much salary cap do we have now? And I know, Dave, you were crunching the numbers. What figures have you come up with?
Yeah, so as of right now, according to SpudTrack, we have $3.1 million in cap space. However, that has not accounted for the new news around Emmanuel Sanders' contract, which we now know is actually technically a 2-year contract with a voidable out in 2022, which is essentially allowed the Bills to spread his signing bonus across 2 years, which has reduced his cap number down to about 4.6 million from the 5.9 originally projected. So you take that 1.3 difference, that gets you up to about a 4.4. And then obviously you got to deduct now the Mitch Trubisky 2.5 million, which is all in 1 year. So you're looking at around $2 million or so in cap space based on my rough calculations right now once these updates go through with Sanders and Trubisky.
Yeah, and obviously things can be done. Greg Tomset over at Cover One does a really good job crunching the numbers as well. He played around on Spot Track. If we restructure Troy White and we restructure Deion Dawkins, that right there is going to get us around like 10, 11, $12 million. If we maybe work on a 1 year, extension with Hughes, add a voidable year to Hughes' contract, you could save some more money, and you could obviously work on an extension with Stephon Diggs that brings his cap number down this year. So there are ways the Buffalo Bills can create upwards of $20 million if they maybe want to chase a tight end that might be available. Anyone hear about that?
And
Any rumors about that? Anyone hear about that going around?
Well, the thing about the cap space too in this situation is that the targets that we had thought about restructuring, like Addison, Butler, Matakevich, like those are now settled, right? Butler's been restructured, Addison's been restructured, Matakevich has been extended. So there's really not much left in the way of like quote restructuring to guys that we would consider cuttable. It's more now going to be around your core foundational guys that we really shouldn't have a ton of discomfort in extending or restructuring to kind of create that cap space. And quick shout out here to Scott, who is always super chatting, by the way, but he has now become an official member. And Steve has a bell apparently now.
Steve got the bell.
So I have a bell.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome
so thank you, Scott, for being a new member. Appreciate that. So yeah, where do you want to start tonight, guys? Do we want to start with Trubisky? Do we want to start with Ertz? Maybe we start with Trubisky because that's kind of the flavor of the moment right now. So the news came in today. We signed Trubisky for 1 year, $2.5 million. Brandon Beane in his press conference this afternoon said this was a reset for Trubisky. And Steve, I don't know if it's something on your side, but there's some clicking going on. Maybe just go mute really quick. Yep, that's good. So one year, $2.5 million. Beane said in his press conference that this was a reset for Mitchell, as they're referring to him, the Bills are, and that this is really a chance for him to come in, learn under Josh, Brian Daboll, Ken Dorsey, and for him to kind of reset his value heading into 2022, which, Steve, I know you had made a comment on this even before we signed Mitch Trubisky, that you thought this could be a possibility due to the fact of something to do with Brian Daboll potentially leaving for a head coaching job. So why don't you explain to the viewers what you meant by that?
I think we lost Steve.
Okay. Well, we'll get him back here in a second. What he was basically, I'm not going to steal his thunder here, but basically what Steve was saying is that, if Brian Daboll were to leave next year and take a head coaching job, there's a chance here that maybe he brings Mitchell Trubisky along with him post 2021 after he has a year to learn under Daboll, Dorsey, Josh Allen, and Mitch Trubisky could kind of be Brian Daboll's Willie Beeman, if you remember at the end of Any Given Sunday when Jamie Foxx went with Al Pacino to the new expansion team, and they started that together. So Jeff, what do you think about this as far as
first of
value,
all,
fit? Yep.
Such a good movie reference. Willie Beeman, Steamin' Willie Beeman. I hadn't thought about that, but it's a good point. And I'm really sad you took Judge's mug off the screen because that was just a perfect still frame of him right there at the bottom.
We'll get him back on.
We'll get him back. Okay, so let me get this straight. We now have 2 top 10 draft picks in our quarterback room.
That's correct.
Hello, I'll take that any day. I saw someone put this out there that if Allen hadn't had the 2020 that he did have, that Twitter would have broken today, putting Trubisky and
Joe
Allen
Marino
on the same team. Yeah, so shout out to Joe Marino because I laughed out loud at that one. But we now have 2 top 10 draft picks in our quarterback room. One who simply wants to come to Buffalo for a year to be the best version of himself, maybe get his mind straight. We don't know what happened behind closed doors in Chicago. We don't. We won't know for another 5-10 years what really happened there. You go through the double doink type thing. That falls on Parkey, but somehow will also get blamed on Trubisky because that's how the quarterback position works. So bring him in. He's got similar traits to Josh Allen and can really, quite frankly, hold the fort down better than Matt Barkley, I think, should Allen have to sit for, the second half after getting injured, if he has to come in for a game or two. But you're, 45 minutes away from the Super Bowl last year. You want somebody who can absolutely make that push if need be this season.
Yeah, I mean, the way I was thinking about this Trubisky signing is like he came in to be the backup. Like, there's no two ways about it. And I think everyone agrees, or at least everyone on the surface seems to agree, that it is an upgrade at the backup quarterback position. I want to throw some numbers at here, and this is something fun I wanted to do with you guys tonight. So Mitch Trubisky to be a backup quarterback for the Bills in 2021 is going to be $2.5 million. We've established that. So listen to some of these numbers, and I'm going to throw some of these backup. These are backup quarterback contract cap hit numbers from 2020. And I want to see if you can guess who the player was. All right. So the first number I'm going to throw at you is $4 million cap hit. Can you tell me who, as a backup quarterback, had that number?
Andy Dalton behind Dak.
No, that was A.J. McCarron for the Texans. $4 million cap hit.
Same state. I was close.
Ryan Thiel says, "Who's typing?" Yeah, I think Judge is having some audio issues at the old classroom there. So
yeah, that school funded Wi-Fi,
Yeah, Scott, again, thanks for becoming a new member, and thank you for the super chat. Scott says, with all the signs New England in free agency, with all that cap space they had, do you think they can compete with us this year for an AFC title, or do you think they're still a year away? They re-sign Cam. What's your opinion? Look. I actually think if you look at the 2020 numbers, Mitchell Trubisky was a better quarterback than Cam Newton. I mean, that's not a hot take. He just was. Won more games. He was a better quarterback. So you could make the argument that the Bills' backup quarterback now is better than the Patriots' starting quarterback. Now, they did sign a lot of guys. They did have issues with personnel as far as the skill position players last year, but I mean, we can't write off we can't write them off, right? I don't think that's fair just because we won the division last year. We have to go into each year thinking like, okay, it's a new year. We have to take care of the business in the division first.
Here's the thing about New England. They broke stride for the first time in 20 years by doing this. They've never paid this type of money to this many players in free agency in one grouping. It reeks to me of a 68-year-old head coach who does not want to go through a rebuild and will just get all the best talent into the building that he can afford. And he's going to take the first month of the season to figure out who his team is and then go from there. It's what Bill Belichick has done. He is the ultimate general to lead by his sergeant's strengths. He's not going to force players into being what they're not. He's going to get the best out of what they do the best. So, and I also think, what were they, 7-9 last year? He didn't like it. It was the first time in a long time that they finished with a losing record, and he is desperate not to do that again because he is approaching the end of his career.
Right. Yeah, he's going for it while he's still there. I totally agree. Yep. They had the cap space. They're doing it. I mean, it makes sense. So A.J. McCarron, back to Trubisky, $4 million, was a $4 million backup quarterback in 2020. I think we all agree that Mitch Trubisky at 2.5 is going to be a nice value there. Here's another one for you. $2.5 million was a backup quarterback. Who do you think that was?
What was the number again?
2.5, the same number as Trubisky.
Matt Barkley?
Nope.
Ooh.
Was it Andy Dalton?
No, that 2.5 was RG3 for the Ravens last year.
I'm just going to keep guessing Andy Dalton because one of these has got to be on the top 5 list.
Andy Dalton was actually, okay, well, now I've already said it. Andy Dalton was a $3 million backup last year for the Cowboys. Here's an interesting one. $2.375 million. So just under what Mitch Trubisky is going to get in 2021. Let's go to Steve on this one. Who's your guess for this, Steve?
For $3 million?
No, 2.375, just under Trubisky's number as a backup last year.
Chase Daniel.
That was Matt Schaub with the Falcons.
Okay.
So what you're seeing here, obviously, is that I'm just trying to illustrate the point here around value. Matt Barkley's cap hit was just over $2 million. It was a $2.025 million cap hit last year. So
Packers rookie Jordan Love. What did he fall on? He's a first round pick. Was he on that list?
Jordan Love, $2.2 million as a cap hit last year.
As a rookie.
Yes, as a rookie, first year. Jeff Driscoll for the Broncos, $1.75 million. Case Keenum for the Browns, $2.8 million. You've got, let's see who else we've got. I mean, Tyrod Taylor was 7.5, although he was the starter. Joe Flacco, 1.5 million. Chad Henne, 1.6 million. Ryan Griffin, 1.6 million. Nate Sudfeld, 1.7. So the point here being is I'm trying to illustrate the value that you're getting out of having Mitch Trubisky as your backup quarterback in 2021, only paying him $2.5 million. You look around the league and take a quick look and you say, look, the Pats gave Cam that $14 million. I know some of that is incentive. A lot of that's incentive based. But you think about backup quarterback, right? Fitzy just got $10 million to go be the starter in Washington. Let's not, pretend that he's not. But $2.5 million for a backup is barely above what we were paying Matt Barkley last year to be a backup. So where do you maybe Jeff, we'll start with you. Trubisky as a fit for the Bills as a backup and as a value for the Bills as a backup. What's your opinion on that?
Give Brandon Beane the home run trot around the bases. I didn't see this coming, but like I said, we have 2 top 10 draft picks now in our quarterback room. Because who else would you have grabbed for a backup? I mean, Matt Barkley sure could come back. He knows the system. He knows Brian Dable. But what was the market out there for a backup? I mean, I think as a fan, a diehard fan, kind of in that little small spot in my heart, could Ryan Fitzpatrick really come back to Buffalo as a backup and end his career chasing a Super Bowl with the Bills? That would be awesome. But the problem with that would create, if Josh has one bad game, you got the fans split calling for Fitzy to come in. But you know what? Dwayne Farr came in with the super chat and he said, so what would his trade value be between now and free agency and trade value post 2021? And you know what? That could be a chip. I mean, we've got Davis Webb. If you think you can get enough value out of him come trade deadline, depending on what's going on in the season, that's another good piece that you could deal out there. I don't see it happening, but it's another piece to the puzzle for sure. But yeah, give Brandon Beane some due credit for this one. I like this move.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of, if not the best backup quarterbacks in the National Football League right now. And, I've mentioned this before. When you were going to recruit Mitch Trubisky, you wanted a quarterback who's similar size to Josh Allen, who's got a similar skill set. Mitch Trubisky's got a big-ish arm. He has the legs. He can scoot. You could make the argument that if Josh Allen, I'm going to knock on wood here, goes down and misses a significant chunk of time, 10, 11 games, with the offense that the Buffalo Bills has and the way we've seen Brian Dable be able to coach up Josh Allen, you could argue that if he's given the platform because of an injury to Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky could end up being the best quarterback in the AFC East behind Josh Allen. Because we still don't know what we got from Tua. We still don't know what we have from Sam Darnold. And we've seen what Cam Newton is, and he's got a chance to come back from COVID and from not knowing the playbook, and he's got some more weapons this year. But guess what? The Bills got better weapons. And if something does happen to Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky's probably in the best position to be the best quarterback in the AFC East. That's how terrible, outside of Josh Allen, the state of quarterbacks are in the AFC East right now.
And I'll just add to this. And I'll add to this. People are talking about, before this move was made, if Josh Allen were to go down for any kind of significant period of time, you'd probably have to write off the Bills' season if it was Matt Barkley. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from Matt Barkley because he's a great teammate. And by all accounts, the guys loved him in that room. But you're likely not going on a deep playoff run if Josh Allen's injured with Matt Barkley at the helm. Now, Trubisky is a guy that I think if Josh Allen is out for 4 to 5 games or something during the regular season, he's probably going to win more games than he's going to lose for you over that stretch. And God forbid something were to happen come playoff time, you would at least give yourselves a fighting chance with Mitch Trubisky as your quarterback. He's got a little bit of playoff experience even too. I mean, albeit not great, but he does have it. So that's where we have on that. So Steve, where are we going next? Where do you want to go from here?
So, am I muted? It says I'm muted up here. Am I good?
You're good.
Cool. I want to go talk Zach Ertz because Benjamin Albright came out and essentially said, listen, the Buffalo Bills are in on Ertz, and he thinks the Buffalo Bills are going to get Ertz. And it was down to really the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Chargers. And Philadelphia has pretty much been trying to pit LA and Buffalo against each other for Zach Ertz. Now, the issue comes is Howie Roseman wants a high price, probably like a third-round pick. And that's not something Brandon Beane is willing to offer. And from what I'm hearing from some of these sources is that Brandon Beane's like, piss off. I'm not giving you a third-round pick. Now, the issue the Buffalo Bills have is all right, well, what about a fourth-round pick? And we don't have a fourth-round pick. We have fifth-round picks to play with, maybe a future fourth-round pick. So I eventually think, just like Benjamin Albright is, that this deal will get done, much like the Philadelphia Eagles swallowed their pride and traded Carson Wentz to the Colts. But to me, I'm pretty confident that Zach Ertz is going to be a Buffalo Bill. And honestly, I think we need him. He's a perfect 1A to Dawson Knox 1B. Zach Ertz can work the seam. He can play in 12 personnel. There's no tight end in the game who's as good at working the zones and beating zone coverage like Zach Ertz. And if you have Emmanuel Sanders and you have Stephon Diggs and you have Cole Beasley and you have Zach Ertz, guys who have the ability to do some of the things that they do in zone coverage, good luck defending that. Everyone wants to talk about New England and their two tight ends. Nobody wants to seem to have a conversation about what you're going to have to cover in Buffalo if Zach Ertz is here. And even if Zach Ertz isn't here, it's going to be practically impossible for teams to play zone defense against us next year, especially if we get Zach Ertz.
And hold that thought. I just want to wrap really quick on Trubisky with Truth to Heart's super chat here. He says, pump the brakes. If Josh gets injured, Mitch Trubisky will not know the scheme to utilize these weapons. Barkley will be better in the team. Well, Mitch Trubisky now will have an entire OTAs, minicamp, training camp, assuming things are back to normal, to get himself situated. And I would imagine with the fact that he's had, a quarterback type guy in his ear, his career with Matt Nagy, Brian Dable, Ken Dorsey are going to be able to get him up to speed. I mean, Mitch Trubisky seems like for his struggles that he's had, he's an above 500 starting quarterback in the league and seems to be a pretty smart dude. And again, I hate to compliment UNC players because we all know I can't stand UNC, but look, I personally don't believe that this is going to be an issue. Do you guys feel like that's at all an issue?
First of all, I just want to jump in. Dwayne Farr, we did get your super chat on the air. We did talk about that just to let you know. But I think Mitch Trubisky is kind of a Brandon Beane gift to Brian Dable, to Steve's point that Tilt was telling me earlier that Brian Dable can walk into head coaching job day one next year and know, I want Mitch Trubisky as my quarterback for the foreseeable future while we draft and develop another guy. That could very well be a gift from Brandon Beane to Brian Dable for the future. But I still think Trubisky can fit into this offense. Maybe not like a glove for Josh Allen, but he can hold down the fort. He's not going to come in for one snap and get blown up off the side that he can see. I think that was the Chargers game. Yeah. That Matt Barkley got blown up because of a missed block, but he's certainly capable, top 10 draft pick. I don't think there's any problems with this move.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement. To me, it was a no-brainer. I didn't think the Buffalo Bills had it in them. I honestly thought that we were going to go out and we were going to sign Matt Barkley and we were going to bring Jake Fromm in and and have what Davis Webb and just have that same four quarterbacks again. So it shows that number one, they trust Josh Allen to have another arm in the room that's semi-competent. And number two, they don't think he needs that mentor, that adult in the room anymore. They think he's progressed to a level where he's beyond that. So I'm super pumped about that. On top of it, speaking of the Zach Ertz thing, The only quarterback in Philadelphia right now is literally Jalen Hurts. So if we're looking to snag Zach Ertz, I believe it was Kendall Mursky on Twitter. He said, Jake Fromm in a fifth. Could that get it done? Could you get Philly to bite on another quarterback, another arm in the room there in Philly, and send Jake Fromm out just a year after he was drafted? I know they have a lot of faith in Davis Webb. The guy's practically a coach on the field. You saw the way he ran OTAs. He was a pretty decent prospect himself coming out of that Cliff Kingsbury system, and he also played with Sonny Dykes out there at Cal. He's got a decent arm. It's nothing great, but he's got a pretty big stature. Davis Webb is a guy that probably has just as much upside as a Jake Fromm. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, maybe you consider floating Fromm's name out there and try to utilize him to get Zach Ertz, or you use Jake Fromm on draft day to maybe try to land yourself a 4th-round pick. Hey, we'll trade you a 5th-round pick and Jake Fromm to get into the 4th round. So Jake Fromm could become a trade chip here.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff would be far more attached to Davis Webb being a leader. He was the one who organized those OTAs for the team last offseason when they went to Florida. He did all the scripts and everything. So I think he's endeared himself to the coaching staff maybe a little more than Jake Fromm. I want to ask you later on in the show, speaking of trades and draft days, Zach Ertz, I kind of fall just a little bit to the side of, is the guy washed up? And if I'm Brandon Beeden, that's what I'm saying to the guy. Like, dude missed 5-6 games last year. We think maybe he's on the downside. He's not worth the contract. If we were to sign him on free agency, we could get him at a cheaper deal. I think Brandon Beane has the better hand because Philadelphia wants to move on from him. I fully believe that they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given him permission to seek the trade. Just the asking price is way too high. He's not a new car. He's not even a good lease at this point. If you're speaking of cars, what are we going to have him 2-3 years, guys?
Yeah, I mean, truth to hearts, back on the Mitchell Trubisky thing here says if Mitch would have went anywhere else, we wouldn't be talking highly. I think the thing here is like he came here to be a backup, right? If he had went somewhere to be a starter, then maybe we'd have a different opinion. But he came here to be the backup. So I would say, if he went somewhere else to be a backup, I'd probably be saying the same thing, depending on if they had a coordinator that was maybe on the cusp of maybe getting a head coaching job.
Look at Kansas City. If Kansas City signs Mitch Trubisky to their backup, what's everybody saying? Oh, there goes Kansas City again. They've upgraded from Chad Henne. If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt again, they're not going to have a problem. Eric Bieniemy's got somebody to groom to be a stopgap guy at his next job. The Buffalo Bills have entered the chat. We've entered the conversation. You see these quarterbacks like Jameis Winston last year. It's the new age where you sign that cheap deal and go and reinvent yourself. New Orleans is a bona fide franchise. And he went there, Jameis Winston did, to play with Sean Payton and to play in that offense. Mitchell Trubisky looked at the Buffalo Bills and said, this is the best situation for me to take a massive under-market deal and to reset and restructure my career. And he's trusting Brian Daboll. And he thinks Brian Daboll is just as capable of an offensive mind as Sean Payton or anybody else out there who would have been trying to offer him that deal like Kansas City. So to me, this shows that, hey, we're on the world stage now. The Buffalo Bills are a legit football team because of the fact that they could lure a Mitch Trubisky in here for a cheap deal like that.
And could this be could Mitch Trubisky maybe potentially have a similar career path to another very highly drafted quarterback that kind of tried to find his way that ended up in Kansas City, and that was Alex Smith. I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick. There was a lot of back and forth with him in San Francisco with Kaepernick and himself. He ended up in Kansas City. Ended up, kind of being the starter there until Mahomes got there. So could that be a guy like when Andy Reid went to Kansas City? Could Daboll do the same thing with Mitch Trubisky and eventually they draft a guy later on? I could see them taking similar paths here. Scott Vanaloo comes in with a super chat, says, one of the analysts asked Brandon Beane, the cap hit, what are you going to do to extend Josh Allen? And Brandon Beane said probably sometime after the draft or before the season starts. But that's a good comment because my opinion was that they wouldn't start talking contract with Josh until after the 21 season.
After the draft.
But now I thought after this season, honestly. So the fact that they're now talking about doing it before this season is quite interesting. What do you guys think about that?
Man, our guy, not Rico. His name just slipped my mind. He's been trying to get Josh Pierre. Thank you. He's been trying to get Josh Allen signed since the middle of last season because it's cheaper right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think after the draft, because it's going to, I think cap wise, it has to be an extension. You can't sign him to a brand new contract because the cap hits and the way they work. If I could be wrong on that as well, but sign him to an extension the way Kansas City signed Mahomes to an extension. Say, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to exercise your 5th-year option, get you a good cap number for the upcoming season. For that season, and then boom, the money hits after that. I think that's the way you negotiate that one if you're big baller bean. But yeah, I fully expect Josh Allen to be here very, very long term. With the Dak Prescott deal now, what are you looking at for Josh Allen? $40 million a year. That's a really big number for the Buffalo Bills. But I think it'll be worth it long term, especially if he plays well this year. And if he does get that extension, he's going to want to prove to the fans that he'll jump over linebackers on a rookie deal. Imagine giving him some big money.
Yeah, it's to me, like I'm not even worried about it right now. Like I'm not. This isn't Dak Prescott. This isn't Kirk Cousins. Josh Allen wants to be here, and the Bills want Josh Allen. And we just happen to be going through one of the most tumultuous, crazy off seasons the National Football League has ever seen from a monetary point of view. But guess what just got signed today? A freaking $100 billion, deal. I think one of the reasons why Brandon Beane probably wants to start talking that contract with him now is because we're going to be seeing the cap go up and up and up and up. So the quicker he can start those conversations, the quicker he can get the deal done. I think the less it's going to affect the cap in the long run, the cheaper you could probably get them. But at the same time, there's no rush. We have all the offseason after the draft before training camp. We have the entire regular season. We have the entire offseason after that. I'm sure we could franchise him, even though we don't want to get into that situation. Like, Josh Allen ain't going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's the least of my concerns. Brandon Beane's going to do right by Josh Allen. Josh Allen will do right by the Buffalo Bills. This marriage between quarterback and city and team, it's a beautiful thing. And before we started this offseason, I said, you guys are kidding yourself if you think Matt Milano and John Feliciano and Darrell Williams are going to take under market value deals to stay in Buffalo. Like, go get paid. And then sure enough, they all took under market deals to stay in Buffalo. Maybe there is something to what Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have cooking here. Maybe Josh Allen will take a Tom Brady deal. I thought that was fabulous. It might not be a reality.
Judge, I think Josh would take a Tom Brady deal, but I think I got 2 points. And the first one is that it's not just Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott now creating that culture. I think it's Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and Josh Allen. I mean, we heard about the phone call, the FaceTime between John Feliciano and Josh Allen, where Feliciano signed his deal, FaceTime Josh Allen, smiled, and hung up. And here's the reason I say that about Josh Allen is because I think if you took 53 players from the Buffalo Bills on their active roster and said, who would you want to defend your back in a dark alley? 52 of them would say Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the 53rd, and he would say John Feliciano. I think Josh Allen is a huge part of that cultural fit for the Buffalo Bills. Like you're saying, Judge, quarterback, team, city. It's a great marriage between the three. And then I forget what my other point was going to be about that. But I think Josh Allen is a big reason why those guys said, okay, we'll do it.
They ran Trubisky by Josh Allen, and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, one of them made the comment today. They said, yeah, he's our franchise quarterback. When we do things, we're going to run it by him. They said he probably gets annoyed at how often we call him. So you know how much Josh Allen means to this franchise when they're publicly making statements like that, especially the way some other franchises are treating their quarterbacks.
I got my other point back in my mind. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
The second point where I was trying to backtrack, and I should have brought this one up first, was that you're talking about $40 million a year. That would be what, top 3 or 4 quarterback contract in the league. In 2-3 years down the road, that's not even going to be a top 5 contract because they're just going to keep leapfrogging. So if you can get them at 10 years for $40 million a year, that won't even be a top 10 quarterback deal by the time that deal is over.
Yeah.
So
I'd give him the Patrick Mahomes deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Ricardo Green asked previously. Yeah, I would too.
I give him a piece of the Sabres too.
Yeah, let's go back to let's touch on these 2 quarterback ones and then move to the running back. How's that sound? Ryan Teal says Trubisky is a perfect Wildcat quarterback. I don't know if Mitch Trubisky is ever going to see the field unless Josh Allen gets hurt, because like you think of the situations where you'd want to use Mitch Trubisky, like on a 3rd and 1 or something of that nature. And I just don't know if that's something that would interest the Buffalo Bills. Like Josh Allen's your quarterback in those situations, not Mitch Trubisky. So maybe they get cute with him. Maybe they get creative with him. Maybe they try to do some like, what's his name in New Orleans?
New Orleans, yeah. His Taysom Hill. And I was going to bring him up because I do know his high school coach personally. In fact, I could call his high school coach right now if I wanted to. I as much as I love Taysom Hill, being an Eastern Idaho guy where I'm living right now, you know, I know a bunch of people who know him. I don't want to see that on the Buffalo Bills. I don't want to see that. No. Maybe you could sneak one play here and there where you got the 2 quarterbacks side by side. Maybe. Don't make it a regular habit, please, Brian Dable. I'm begging you not to turn him into a Taysom Hill type of situation. Because Josh is the guy.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Sergio Chavez comes in with a great comment. He says, hard for a move to you overrated at $2.5 million. That's pretty much the going rate for a backup quarterback in the National Football League. And it's hard to argue that there are many backup quarterbacks better than him. So finally, Ricardo Green, we're going to get to your super chat. Apologies it took so long. Super chats are flying in tonight, guys. We really appreciate it. There's just so much to talk about. And you know Jeff, he just likes to do this. He just likes to flap those lips like Mr. Ed, with peanut butter between them.
Just for you, Judge. Just for
All
you.
right. So we got Ricardo Green coming in saying, we need a running game bad. Who do you think can help us? Marlon Mack actually re-signed in Indianapolis, so he's not an option. But Kenyon Drake went to Oakland. I cried a little bit during my lunch break. That was a sad time. But for me, the 4 running backs that I have my eye on, if the Buffalo Bills are going to go the free agency route, my new number 1 is Phillip Lindsay. It's going to be really interesting to see the contract he gets. Spot Track is estimating him at $8 million. I think that's ridiculous. I think you can probably get him for half that, less than half that. And the other 3, like I said, if they're good enough for Kyle Shanahan, they're good enough for me. Any version of Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, or J. Rick McKinnon to come in and sort of take the TJ Yeldon role and compete with the other 2. Add that speed, had that receiving ability. I'm fine with those 4. Are there any running backs that catch your guys' eye?
It was Lindsey when I heard he was. They pulled his tent. Did they tender him and then
pulled his tender? It was an original round, but he was a UDFA. They're just moving on.
Yeah, they're just moving on. That would be my number 1. But D Handsome asks, do we keep the same running game, or do we look to improve at this point? I mean, you're always looking to improve, but here's the thing: Zach Moss was a rookie. Devin Singletary was coming off his 2nd year. And I think our running problems weren't just the backs, and it wasn't just the line. It was kind of a conglomerate of issues. They were looking to throw the ball more often. There could have been tells. They could have been tipping their pitches, too, of this is going to be a running play. You never know. They could have self-scouted that this offseason. We know that going into the bye week, they said we got to look at the running game. It very well could have been a conglomerate, and they might try to roll in with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Just in my opinion, don't spend a first-round draft pick on a running back. If you can get a good guy cheap in free agency, that's the way you're going to go, unless you're looking in 5th, 6th, 7th round.
Yeah, someone said, John Herring said, what about a running back in Duke Johnson? I like Duke Johnson. He's a receiving back. He's always been criminally underutilized, so maybe Brian Dable can finally utilize him to his best abilities. Do you have any thoughts on Duke Johnson, Dave?
I've always liked Duke Johnson. I always thought he was kind of underutilized, like you said, in Houston, and especially in Cleveland, which they, eventually moved on from him. He brings a little bit of something different that you don't necessarily have. He's really a really good receiving back, but he's kind of underrated as a runner too. I just worry that, again, he's not the guy that really has that home run speed necessarily. And if like you're really looking for, something that doesn't overlap with some of the skill sets you already have, from a running standpoint, I think there's some redundancy. But if you're talking about a pure receiving back, that can be like, we talked about like a Chris Thompson type. He can certainly do that. But I feel like Duke Johnson is probably looking at himself and is like, I keep getting pigeonholed into this like label as a receiving back, but he views himself maybe more as like a complete back. The problem is like everywhere he goes, he's just basically been used as a receiving back. Other than last year when David Johnson got injured for the Texans, he kind of like, he got a little bit of work in the running game, but really I think that's his role now. So if you're okay with that kind of Chris Thompson type guy, like we've said, yeah, he could be a guy worth looking at.
Yeah.
If they came out and just said, we're rolling with Singletary, Moss, and Antonio Williams, I'd be happy with that. Because we had fans screaming for Antonio Williams to get his opportunity.
They said that today. They said, listen, we're fine with our running backs. Like, if you guys remember when Devin Singletary was drafted, after that draft, Matthew Fairburn sat down in Brandon Beane's office for like a one-on-one interview, and they just sat and watched tape together. And Brandon Beane was like practically blown his load over watching Devin Singletary film from FAU. He said, I don't care what 40 this guy runs. Look at the tape. And he was just having himself a day. No hands could be found when Brandon Beane was watching that Devin Singletary tape. Brandon Beane loves Devin Singletary. I heard people on Twitter today saying, oh, we're going to go trade Devin Singletary. We're not trading Devin Singletary. He ain't going nowhere. He's not
Speaking
going.
of
Brandon
hands,
Beane
Judge.
loves that dude. Brandon Beane loves that dude. He's not going anywhere. If anything, we just add a back with some kind of a speed trait. But we're going to get to Dylan's comment in a second. But real quick, Truth to Heart's coming in saying, so it's truth to what John Brown said, as in, hey, if they're running everything by Josh Allen, Josh Allen approved, upgrading from John Brown to Emmanuel Sanders. So, when Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott went to Josh Allen and said, we really like Emmanuel Sanders, we think we can get him. Are you okay with us cutting John Brown loose? Josh Allen must have said, hey, do what you think is right. So maybe there was some truth to what John Brown had to say. But you think, Dave?
No, I'm just saying they did say, and you can see my hands. They did say we're going to run stuff.
There they are, Judge.
We're going to run stuff by him, but he's not. He won't be making the decision.
Yeah.
Right. So for all they know, they could have been like, look, we were thinking about cutting John Brown. We want to go after Emmanuel Sanders. For all we know, Josh could have been like, man, I really love John Brown. Really hope we can keep him. But if it doesn't, did they
really release John Brown with Emmanuel Sanders in mind? I think Emmanuel Sanders was a chain reaction for having released John Brown to create the cap space to get Milano, Williams, and Feliciano back in house, and then wait a minute, Emmanuel Sanders just became available. Let's see what we can get. And I don't think it was a tit for tat. I think it was a chain reaction.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that knowing the history that they were interested in Emmanuel Sanders before they got Stephon Diggs probably was like, oh, they like kind of like peaked their eyebrow up a little bit, like, wow, maybe we do have a chance to get both of these guys on the same team. So yeah, that could be, it could have been a chain reaction.
Got Dylan coming here with the super chat. I always appreciate it, Dylan. I'm sorry, guys, that it's taking us so long to get to these super chats. A lot of super chats tonight, so we really do appreciate all you guys chiming in. He says, at this point, with most of our needs taken care of, here's the question that everybody is debating all over social media. This is the talk of Bills Mafia. Do you draft Harris or Etienne if available at 30 or best player available, and then Landon Dickerson at 61 and on from there? Hey, I like Harris. I like Dickerson. I'm all for that. Dickerson obviously comes with those injury concerns. But if Harris and Etienne are on the board at 30, guess who I'm taking? I'm taking Javonte Williams. I think he's not running back number one in this class. I might be in the minority there, but Dave, what do you think about taking a running back at 30? The Bills have done every time we think we know what the Bills are doing, they do the opposite. So,
well, it would be the ultimate misdirection, right? Because they pretty much just came out and said today, we like what we've got in the running game. And that was like kind of now a combination of the guys they brought back on the line and the running backs they already have in the room. So unless it's like a complete misdirection, I would be surprised. I'm still really not on team running back at 30. I would be on team running back if you wanted to maybe trade down from 30 into the middle of the second round, pick up an extra pick, and then take a running back with your first pick, although it would be in the second round. I'd be kind of okay with that. I would try to want to find the sweet spot on the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you feel like Etienne and Harris are going to be the first two backs taken, and maybe one or two of them are still available at 30, maybe you have someone who really wants to come up and get Etienne, and you can kind of move back and get a Williams in the middle of the second round. And I'd be okay with a move like that, I think.
Jeff, what do you think about running back at 30?
I'm team no running back in the first round. Look, I love my economics, and I love the way Brandon Beane plays the economics of football. Running backs really can be a dime a dozen, unless you're going to load up Henry, as Tennessee does. Derrick Henry down there, and you're going to run him 50 times a game. I just don't like running backs in the first round. You can get better value out of other positions. And I think really what you're seeing is kind of going to be the second wave. I think this draft, you will see the second wave of draft and develop. We've seen that happen through the first 4 drafts now with this crew. But now they've re-signed their own guys. They brought in some free agents that they liked. Now you can afford to draft BPA and develop them. I think defensive line, maybe could you get an edge rusher there?
That's my number
Tampa
one
Bay,
right now.
Tampa Bay exposed Kansas City, and Kansas City blew up their offensive line because of it this offseason. Go get yourself an edge rusher and maybe let him develop.
Yeah. To me, I'm team take a running back at 30 if they're the best player on the board. Like if Zaven Collins is on the board at 30, I'm taking Zaven Collins because I think his combination of like pass rush along with being able to play linebacker and play sort of a joker role on that defense. And there's a couple other players that I would take. So I'm team take a running back at 30 if running back is like clear cut. There's no one better at 30 than the running backs. But there's
leave his image.
Very few situations. Like Rondale Moore, who's a fairly highly thought of running back prospect, who's expected to go somewhere between the beginning of the second round and like the end of the second round. So if the Buffalo Bills are like zeroing in on Rondale Moore at 30, I'd rather have a running back than Rondale Moore, even though Rondale Moore does give you that return ability and that gadget ability. But it all depends on who's on the board. We got a super chat that appears here from Scott. What does Scott have to say?
Yeah, so he's talking about the TV deal. Obviously, there was the news today that Sunday Ticket is moving to ESPN Plus. There's also the NFL making a huge contract with the TV station, the ABC, NBC, ESPN, Amazon, a couple other ones for year 23 to 2033. So I guess I'm not going to be getting Sunday Ticket on DirecTV anymore. I'm going to have to sign up for
I think it expires after this season. I think you got one more cycle of AT&T bills for DirecTV. It's the only reason I keep DirecTV is
same
for Sunday Ticket. That's one of the reasons why you're going to be able to go and afford Josh Allen at $40 million a year is because of the TV contract basically is your salary cap each year. What you get from the TV deals is what you're going to pay to the players. It's almost identical, I think. And then Randy Hardman coming in. I can't read that, guys. If you can read it a little, if you got a little closer, I can't see it from here.
Yeah, so Randy, he's a regular of ours, comes in, says, thanks, Randy, appreciate that. He says, the percentage of pin and pull runs, which was the bread and butter in 2019, was drastically down in 2020, which is really kind of what our offensive line athletically is kind of set up best to do. At least it was in 2019. Scheme was a factor, then the injuries and lack of cohesiveness factor also. Fixed scheme and stay healthy. These backs are fine. So Randy is clearly not on team running back at pick 30, and I think there is some truth to this. However, I will say this. Our running backs are fine. Is that what you want? Do you want your running backs to just be fine? Like Jeff King said the other day, like there's no. Do you have any fear of either of these running backs? Do you
don't
care?
need fear in
Do
our
you
system.
do you
No,
care?
Judge, I used this analogy all during the season, and you're a Yankees fan, aren't you? And I'm surprised. No, I'm sorry, not Judge. Tilt is
I'm
a
a
Yankees
Yankee
fan.
fan.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tilt. Sorry, mixed up my people there. Tilt. Our running game doesn't need to be the elite Andy Pettit pickoff move.
Yep.
We don't need to say we're going to pick you off whether you know it's coming or not. We just need to be the pitcher that tosses the ball over just to keep the runner honest. And what I mean by that, we just need to run the ball to keep the defense honest off of Josh Allen. Because if the defense is just playing Josh Allen and the receivers, we need to keep them honest. If you can get 5-6 yards a pop every few plays from the running game, if you're going to run the ball 60-40, or excuse me, pass the ball 60-40, do you need a Derrick Henry? I don't think so. I think you don't need running backs who are creating fear. We got Josh Allen for that.
No, I mean, I'm kind of with you there. Like, it depends on the volume. I'm with you. I think there's an argument to be made that in theory, if you could find a transcendent talent in the draft that you could have on a rookie deal as a running back to go along with the explosiveness you have in the receiving core, and to really put yourself into a situation where, like, no matter where you look on that offense, there's someone to fear. But I'm with you. Like, I probably wouldn't draft the person there. Scott says, and Scott, thanks again. He says, in your guys' opinion, what are the odds of the team trading back and picking up more picks? Not only finding a partner to trade back if they can't find anybody at 30. So this is kind of what we were just talking about on the running back situation. So I am on team trade back personally, unless like Steve said, unless there's like a Zaven Collins or some like guy that you had no thought of dropping to you at 30. I'm definitely all for team trade back. And like Steve said as well, if you pick up that extra 4th rounder, maybe that's ammo during the draft to make a trade during the draft. We've seen it happen where teams make trades during the draft for players using draft picks. So it's not something that doesn't happen.
Here's the thing. I don't think we've ever seen Brandon Beane as Buffalo Bills GM trade back.
No,
so it would go against historical data to say that he would trade back. Also, more picks. What are the chances of the back half of this draft making the roster?
Well, it's a great point, because I think you're a team now that you weren't 2 years ago, where you're in a position to make a run. You are the hunted now, right? You're the team that needs a few pieces here and there. You're not the team that's trying to rebuild from the ground up by collecting picks. So it'll be interesting to see if their philosophy changes now. And like you said, Jeff, that Beane hasn't traded back in his time as the Bills GM. He's only traded up. However, in those past drafts, he's had a lot of ammo as well. In this draft, he's obviously only got the kind of stock 7 picks, and 2 of those are in the 6th round, and he doesn't have a 4th rounder. So it's going to be interesting. I could also see them just picking with the selections they have and not making any moves. I could see that as well.
I think he'll use one of those 5th rounders to move up in the second. So? I think maybe they'll take who they want to take at 30, and then they'll try to move up in the 2nd round to go after a guy they want. I would be completely okay with them trading up in this draft if like Koromoa Owosu Owosu Koromoa was sticking out on the board. If there was another player that they like Zaven Collins that they want sticking on the board, I'd be more than willing to trade for Koromoa. I'd trade my 1st and my 2nd. Like I'd be willing to risk it for that biscuit for him. If there's a player like J.C. Horn, I think I'd almost be willing to trade a 1 and a 2 to get up to get J.C. Horn. There are some other guys maybe I consider a 1 and a 3 like Zaven Collins, but there are some moves you can make up the draft board, and with a 1 and a 2 you could probably get up into the teens, and you could probably get your hands on a J.C. Horn or a Owosu Koromoa if they slip. So this team is, like you said, Jeff, like there's not a lot of holes on this team. There's not a lot of roster spots. If you can add an impact player that's going to come in and help put you over the top and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and you think it's J.C. Horn or you think it's Owosu Koromoa, give up your 1st and your 2nd round pick. Who cares? Who cares?
Here's the thing. They may only have, and I think it was Chris Brown made this point as I was listening to him this week. they may only have first round grades on 20, 25 guys, given the football season we just had through 2020, college football scouts not being able to get on the road, having to do all of their scouting virtually and by telephone. So if they only have, let's say they only have 20 to 25 first round grades, maybe you do move up, or you just move back into the second round by a few picks. And then you have 2 2s and other picks that you can move for a Zach Ertz or somebody like that. It's all strategy.
Somebody screenshot this. Somebody screenshot this right now. If we trade up in the first round, Bobby will get my cartoon tatted right on his butt.
Speaking of tatted,
I gotta go. I know. I gotta get there. I haven't gotten it.
Oh, you haven't gotten it yet. Oh, no. Okay.
Convenient. Joshua Richard says, Carlos Dunlap, Melvin Ingram, still available. Can we sign Damian Williams from the Chiefs? Maybe trade for Dino. Like I said at the beginning of the show, as of right now, we don't do anything else. We're only sitting at around $2 million of cap space, and that's not accounting for the rookie contracts yet. So there's still some maneuvering that has to be made. I don't know if there's another splash that we can make. I mean, Brandon Beane did say today in his press conference that they're still looking, he left it pretty open-ended, right? He's like, we're still looking at edge in free agency or the draft. So it's pretty much like he answered with a non-answer. It was like, we're not sure what we're going to do, but I would be surprised at this point if there was another splashy move outside of a trade, maybe in a restructure, like the Danielle Hunter type or a Zach Ertz type, where you could make a trade and then kind of work something out with the contract to where, that would work for you cap wise. But just going out and straight up signing a guy, I don't know how feasible that's going to be right now. So, we've got people saying Melvin Ingram is washed. What about Philip Lindsay? Like, there's a lot of this is now where we're getting kind of to the point where before free agency started, it was like we had this long list of guys that we wanted to go after. It's gotten now to the point in free agency where there's maybe one more guy that we could get, and it's it would have to be someone at a reasonable price. And so maybe that's where we go next with the conversation. Who's that one more guy that's out there that you think could be had at a reasonable price? Is it a Philip Lindsay? Is it a Xavier Rhodes? Is it someone else? Who is that guy? And is there anyone, or are all the guys that you liked sort of gone at this point that you feel like we could have gotten at a reasonable price?
Here's the thing. I think all the agents really like to talk, and the agents are all getting around saying to each other, I just got worked over by Brandon Beane. So, are there any other agents out there that want?
How does he keep doing it? People, when people trade with him, were the Falcons sitting there thinking, we're going to trade Lee Smith for a condition, we're going to trade a conditional 7th-round pick for Lee Smith, but this is Brandon Beane we're dealing with, so we know when we make this trade, we're going to look stupid, but we're going to do it anyway. I mean, he keeps doing it. Yeah,
he must be running out of cigarettes that the post trade, the post deal cigarettes. He just that John Hamm, light them up. I'm relaxed. I've got you done. I've gotten you taken care of. To answer the question though, is there anybody out there that I am dying to get and to see how Brandon Beane works his magic? No, because during the season we were talking about, hey, fans, get ready. Matt Milano might be the very first draft and develop guy that we have to let walk. We have to let one of our own walk, and yet Brandon Beane did work his magic. Can we get used to that? Do we have to go big time shopping? No, not this season anyway. And I kind of like that. Take care of your own. Now you've got this cohesiveness coming back. I don't know that there is anybody else out there that I am giddy over to say, hey, I need him to be a Buffalo Bill.
I think for the Bills, I think if I'm trying to predict what's going on at one Bills drive, which is hard to do, I would say 1A right now is probably Zach Ertz. And if they can't get their hands on Zach Ertz, my guess is 1B is Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is still out there. Every report links him to Buffalo. To me, he's been sitting out there a while, so the price probably has come down. You could probably get Richard Sherman for somewhere in the $8 million range. To me, if I'm trying to predict what Brandon Beane is up to, my guess is his two guys are Zach Ertz and Richard Sherman. Now, I would rather them go after Malcolm Butler. I think Malcolm Butler would be a better player and a better investment. But if I was trying to predict what's going through Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane's mind, I think that after Ertz, it's probably Richard Sherman.
Let me ask you this, though. Have the 1-year rentals that Beane has brought in, have they worked at cornerback? Yeah. I don't know if Richard Sherman, a 1-year rental at his age, it is good. I'd rather fly with Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace at this point. To what I was saying earlier, we've got our own guys. That's what I was saying about Antonio Williams. Dane Jackson falls right into that category for me. I'm okay. Let's fly with this guy. But the 1-year rentals haven't worked at cornerback.
Yeah, it's super interesting on what the Bills are going to do. I see a bunch of people, talking in the comment section about D-line. I don't like, Clowney sitting out there. Carlos Dunlap is sitting out there. I personally love Jarrell Casey. He's sitting out there. I just don't think the Bills have any of much interest in adding an impact defensive lineman via free agency. I think if they're going to add one, because, we're pretty stacked there. We could go into the season with the defensive line we have right now and tread water. We only lost, Quentin Jefferson and Trent Murphy? So we could tread water at that position. However, I think that in the draft, some of the guys they've been looking at, Joe Tryon, Joseph Asai, there are some guys sitting there. I think the Buffalo Bills might pull the trigger on an edge rusher in the second round of the draft. So I think that's where Buffalo probably has their eyes on edge. And John DeMarchi comes in, that Harvard education from John, saying the Bills need an impact defensive end on a rookie deal.
That's my number one. That's my number one want for their 30 for the pick at 30. I want an edge. That's for me.
I don't know if any edge at 30 is going to be worth it, though.
Well, that's the thing.
Really,
unless it's like a Phillips or someone that falls. You're right. I don't know if there's anyone that's going to be worth it, but there's always someone that falls. It always seems to be. And maybe, like you said, if like someone falls to like 25 and they're still sitting out there and they just have to move up from like 30 to 25, maybe it's not going to cost them a ton. The other thing that
another guy could slip. Quiddy.
Yep. I like Quiddy. The other thing I think that Beane might do is he might say, you know what? With the situation this year, there are going to be free agents still sitting out there after the draft that aren't signed, and maybe some of them are going to be pretty decent players. Look at Clowney last year. That guy, I believe, didn't sign until the summer, if I'm not mistaken. So, you're going to have guys that maybe you can have the luxury of seeing how your draft plays out before you go back to the sort of remains on the free agent market. And still find quality players if that's the case. And so Beane's playing the patient game right now. Obviously, the only guy we've signed out of the building to this point are the only two guys we've signed out of the building to this point were one, Emmanuel Sanders, who's a guy that they've had their eye on for a couple years, and they obviously had to replace John Brown, and two, the backup quarterback position. So they're not really like aggressively going after like the splashy skill position guys or the splashy like edge, like we know they were in on JJ Watt, but like they seem content with not moving off their sort of their bench in the way that it's like we're not going to move off of like a certain number, or the Zach Ertz trade, for example, like we're not going to budge off of a certain asking price because we don't feel like we need to right now.
And that's the thing. Brandon Beane is very good at budgeting and sticking to that budget and making sure that it gets followed for the process. I'm still looking. I still have my board up from the AFC Championship game because I just don't want to let it go. And I'm looking at our offensive linemen going, okay, we're almost all back there. But I still wouldn't mind a depth piece at offensive line, maybe a draft and develop guy. Maybe not necessarily at 30, maybe in the later rounds, go get yourself some offensive linemen. Anybody out there you like on the O-line?
I mean, Chris Reed's still out there. I don't think he's been signed as a guard, but Roderick Johnson, a guy I've liked. I mean, there are guys out there, but again,
Lamar Dotson.
Yeah, DeMar Dotson.
As a swing.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
We don't have a
do
swing
need
yet. That's one of our most underrated needs.
It's true. No, that's true. That's fair. That's fair. So yeah, there's a few guys I like on the offensive line, but I also really like this draft class for interior offensive line. So maybe for the swing tackle of free agency, I'd be kind of okay with that. But interior, I don't know at this point that you've got kind of Feliciano back in the building if you need to do much, and you've obviously just tendered Butker, and he's going to be back. So not a lot you probably have to do interior wise, but swing tackle, I agree with Steve. It is kind of like a sneaky need for this team.
Yeah, somebody says here in the super chat, William Reddick comes in and says, "Why not bring in cornerback Adoree Jackson?" It's an interesting name.
I don't understand the fascination with Adoree Jackson.
His kick and punt return ability.
Okay.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, are you going to get Isaiah McKenzie back for that?
No, I think they're going to draft one. I think they're going to use, I think that they're going to find someone to use as a kick returner, whether it be like Devin Singletary or Zach Moss or Tanner Gentry, or they'll find a body to use as a kick returner because like who really cares about kick returns anymore in the National Football League? And I think Christian Wade could get in there as a kick returner possibly and earn a roster spot. Taiwan Jones could be the kick returner. And then I think that they're going to go out and they're going to chase a punt returner in the draft. So I that's what I personally think. But the name that keeps popping up that everybody wants, that I want, and we've been on this train for a couple of weeks now, Corduroy Patterson would look really good in a Buffalo Bills uniform.
This is my point, and I think this is perfect. If your one reason to bring in Adoree Jackson is to do kick and punt return and like, okay, he can play corner, he's not a very good corner. Like, I don't understand the fascination with that. So if you're going to bring in someone that can do kick and punt returns, I would rather bring in Corduroy Patterson than Adoree Jackson. Like, if that's your main need, or if that's your main reason for wanting him, Adoree Jackson is not a good corner. Like go watch his film, go watch some of his games. Like, he's not a good corner. Sorry, I just feel like everyone's kind of hopped on this Adoree Jackson train, and I really don't understand why, because he's not that good. Like, he's not.
Yeah, Tennessee is right now, with the exception of a few really good players. John Robinson went to the Bill Belichick school of drafting from that New England tree, because they traded Isaiah Wilson for a swap of 7th round picks. They used a first rounder on him. They used a first rounder on Adoree. They just like wasting draft picks, apparently. Randy Probst comes in and says, Tilt is right.
Well, we lost Judge.
Hey, his final last words.
Tilt is right. That's the
Tilt is right.
Word.
Famous last words.
That's all we heard. We got
lost
cut off.
you, Judge.
Oh no, you lost me. Tilt is right.
Yeah, so that's what it sounded
perfect.
like. It froze right after you said that, so it was great.
The only time you'll hear that out of his mouth, Tilt.
Well, we can bring it back up here. So Randy says, Tilt is right. Bean said they will wait now. Check O-line, running back DL in the draft. Wait for vets to be cut. His team's full spot. Patience. Yeah. I mean, and we have the luxury now of being the team that can practice that, right? And that's, I think, one of the themes we've been talking about today. John says round 5, Jarrett Patterson. UB ran 4.52 at his pro day today. Just saying, kid can play and would be a nifty third back. Should call Lindsey as well for breakaway threat. My best friend's a Broncos fan, and I texted him, and I was like, I saw the Broncos rescinded the tender on Lindsey. Like, what do you think? Do you think that what do you think of him for the Bills? And he's like, I really like Lindsey. What he said to me was interesting. He's like, he's fast, but for some reason, he hasn't taken advantage of his speed, at least to this point in Denver. He said he felt like every time Lindsey kind of got to the edge, he never really was able to turn the corner. And I was like, well, that's been kind of the problem with our backs. Like, they can't turn the corner, which is interesting because Lindsey is a faster guy. So maybe he just hasn't really, put it all together.
2,000-yard seasons, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, he's still faster than every guy we have on the team. So I'd be interested in kind of seeing Philip Lindsay. Steve, Jarrett Patterson.
He's gonna be one of the steals of this draft. To me, Jarrett Patterson is a slightly faster Devin Singletary. He is a slightly faster Devin Singletary. And if Devin Singletary was a little bit faster, I think more people would be talking about Devin Singletary. I think everyone go back and remember that nice feeling you had inside your chest and the butterflies that would flutter out of your stomach whenever Devin Singletary got the ball in 2019. That all seemed to go away in 2020, and now he's like the freaking scum of the earth. No one wants to talk about Devin Singletary. Everyone wants to trade him and get rid of him, and there's so many people on Twitter saying he's hot trash. He's not hot trash. Randy was right in the comment section earlier when it said, like, there was a ton of different problems. Is our running back room lacking speed? Yes, it is. That's a trait we can add to our room, but from a change in scheme to all of the rotating that was going on with that offensive line, there was a ton of issues that affected the running game last year. Devin Singletary is anything but hot trash. Zach Moss is a quality running back. They're efficient, but they're not elite. So if you want to go out and add an elite runner, I'm for it. But like, that's the reason why I'm not really on the Jarrett Patterson train. Like, I don't want to waste draft capital on another Devin Singletary-ish player. I'd rather just go out in free agency and add Tevin Coleman or Matt Beretta or Jarek McKinnon and just bring in a TJ Yeldon type to battle with Antonio Williams. If we're going to go out for a running back, I want that trade of speed. Go get me Phillip Lindsay. Go draft me a guy in the second round or something. If you really want that impact back, you want a factor back, you're going to have to pony up capital for it. Because, you know, I just don't think that gem is out there in the middle to late rounds of the draft.
And here's the thing with Lindsey too, is that he's been with a team that really hasn't had the pieces to take away from his production. And what I mean by that, defenses have been able to key on him as one of the guys in their offense. They haven't, you know, he hasn't just, you know, come on as a surprise. They've kind of known after the first 4 or 5 games of his rookie year that, okay, this guy's pretty good. And they've been able to focus on him because Denver hasn't had many other pieces, whereas our 2 backs from last year, they didn't really have to focus on him. So maybe you put Phillip Lindsay in the position of, you know, we don't want to focus on him because we're going to be keen on Josh Allen. Maybe he can turn the corner now in Buffalo's offense if he can get around the edge.
Yeah, we got a new member here. Welcome to the Bing Squad, Cincinnati's OG Blah 513. Welcome to the Buffalo Fanatics. We appreciate you becoming a new YouTuber. We got 2 members tonight. We're really cooking. We're really let the air raid hour cook. That's what you got to do to have those members. For
the record, if I were in Steve's 6th grade history class, I'd be terrified if he was hitting that bell.
I got it at the dollar store. I have no idea. I've never used it.
Catches a kid cheating, like rings the bell right in their freaking face.
Whenever they fall asleep, you know.
Yeah.
We
That's
also
what the water bottles for, squirt bottle.
Before we get to anything, we got some breaking Buffalo Bills news. We are breaking Buffalo Bills news here on the Air Raid Hour. Former Buffalo Bill Reggie Ragland has signed a 1-year deal with the New York Giants. So some breaking news here on the Air Raid Hour.
Wow.
And John says he's just jaded coming to the super chat. I appreciate it, John. Says he's just jaded because UB's Khalil Mack got away. Forgive me. Don't you worry. I'll never forget that night. I was at my buddy's house. We were jumping up and down thinking that Khalil Mack was going to be a Buffalo Bill, and they took Sammy Watkins. And we, like any Bills fan did, we justified it and we loved it.
Speaking of Sammy Watkins,
what is with Trainwreck? What did Trainwreck do? What has
I don't
Jack
know.
Kelvin and Co. done? Is that a joke?
Is he at Duff's right now eating wings?
That has to be a joke, right? They have not come out and confirmed or denied whether they are joking, but like, come on, like that, you get canceled for that, man. You can get canceled for stuff like that. You can't just be making up those rumors. Anyone?
Yeah, I couldn't see him coming back. Not with the wide receiver room that we already have in the small cap space. It just would not make sense. I mean, you get him on a vet minimum. Maybe Sammy Watkins was having dreams about coming back to Buffalo and just wanted to, get some wings. But I don't see it strategically right now. I don't see it. But here's a topic I do want to get on because if you may allow me to steer the ship.
What did I say? What am I getting? That was so wrong, Judge. And then someone else said, oh, what the fuck? Come on, Judge. What did I do? What did I say? Those are the kinds of things you get canceled for. That is. You can't just say things.
We almost got canceled for saying the tampering period was open at the wrong time.
Yeah, we said 4 o'clock when it was noon. Our DMs blew up.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a joke, but it's a little bit of a joke. But yeah,
How about quarterbacks around the league? I mean, there's so many chips out there as far as quarterback movement that can still fall. And the biggest one, who in the last day or two has come into some legal problems, not to mention some imaging and PR problems on top of that, would be Deshaun Watson. Here's my question for you, and I want to play this hypothetical because I just feel like it would be completely diabolical on Brandon Beane's part. And if you're Brandon Beane, what is it worth to you in terms of draft picks to keep Deshaun Watson out of the AFC East? So if you're Brandon Beane, and let's say you hear that Carolina or San Francisco is heating up talks with Houston, and the Jets and the Dolphins are getting in there, talks are hot, and you call Caserio and say, I will give you 2 extra draft picks, and I'm going to force this to be a 3-team trade because I'm going to force you to take less if you're going to trade him to the Jets or Dolphins. Tilt's thinking about it. What is that? What are those draft picks to say, I don't want Deshaun Watson in the division, and I'm going to force this to be a 3-team trade because you're going to have to take less to trade him to the Jets, Dolphins, or Pats? Is it a 3rd-round pick? Is it 2 4s? So basically you're calling the other team as well, let's say John Lynch, and saying, I'm going to help you load up your arsenal with draft picks. I'm going to give you 2 picks, 3 picks to help send to Houston, but you're going to have to give me X. So what are those draft picks, and what would you want in return? Would you want a depth O-lineman? Would you want, before we had Matt Milano, would you want an outside linebacker type player? How would you force yourself into keeping Deshaun Watson out of the AFC East?
Who's San Francisco's punt and kick returner? Are they any good? I don't even know who it is off the top.
I think
of my
they use
head.
like Debo.
Oh, well, never mind. And the Panthers, I mean, I think they used Samuel last year as their punt returner or kick returner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who they use as their punt returner. I mean, it's like the draft day scenario. Give me David Putney or whoever your kick returner is. No, look, I don't know, man. I think that's tough because it would have to be a contingency, right? It would have to be you would have to do that after the move. Like, you couldn't send that to San Francisco and then for that deal to fall through with San Francisco for Watson, and then you're left holding,
it would have to be a 3-team trade.
Yeah, it would have to be a 3-team trade. And yeah, I mean, those are rare in the NFL, though. I feel like, I mean, when's the last?
We can take Christian McCaffrey off the Panthers.
I like this one, the rights to Kuechly. We'll just take his rights.
They'll replace Dan Morgan when Dan Morgan leaves.
How about we? Let's work McCaffrey into that.
That's just the way I think. Is if I'm Brandon Beane and I don't want Deshaun Watson in my division on any of the teams, I got some draft picks because the chances are some of my draft picks aren't going to make the roster, so you can have them to keep Deshaun Watson out of the division for 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one: 1st and 2nd rounder for McCaffrey.
I don't think Carolina would take it.
I don't think they would either, especially if Carolina's trying to make a play for Deshaun Watson. That they're going to do everything. If Carolina's making a play for Deshaun Watson, they will trade everything they can to get him without trading McCaffrey. They will keep McCaffrey if it means trading everything else they have to get McCaffrey and Deshaun Watson together. But for us, this doesn't seem like maybe a Doug Whaley type move, but they would need more. They would need more than that.
Thank you for ranking me with Doug Whaley. I'll take it.
It's not going to happen. The only reason I said that is because he did trade for McCoy, which actually was a pretty good trade. So I'll give him credit for that.
And that one fell in his lap too. That one wasn't him forcing it either.
Right. That was legitimately like both sides wanted it, and not to get too sidetracked, but he made some good trades for us. Like, other than the trade up for Sammy Watkins, but like Jerry Hughes, LaShawn McCoy. I mean, those were good moves he made. Anyway, So
Nate Wilson, that is blasphemy. Josh for Deshaun and C-Mac, no thank you. I'm riding with Josh the whole way through.
I like this confidence from Truth to Hearts here. He says, F that, bring Deshaun. It'll put more spotlight on the Bills, and we got down.
yeah, true. Sharpen iron with iron, right?
Yeah,
Or
as
iron
long as he
with
doesn't go to the Patriots.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
That's not the Patriots.
God.
Dolphins or Jets, I'll be fine. Not the Patriots.
I mean, if the Dolphins have probably the most ammo to make it happen, right? I mean, as far as draft picks, the young quarterback, as far as like I'm concerned, if I was looking around the league and I was like a GM, I'd probably be more interested in attaining Tua than I would be attaining Sam Darnold. That's just my personal preference. And they have the first round picks. So Miami is one of the few teams that actually probably has the ammo to get it done. And that's kind of been, that's been one of the main talking points in the offseason is like this Miami to Texans deal. It's like everyone talks about it. So,
and here's the thing: if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm nixing a trade to Northern New Jersey at all costs. You think I'm going to sit out for Houston? I'm going to sit out even faster for the Jets. Like that organization just eats quarterbacks.
Well, at least Adam Gase is gone, right?
All right, gents. All we got left is the punter. A lot of people were talking about. I've heard a lot of conversations on a lot of different podcasts this week. Throwing the statistics out there. Listen, Corey Borges is probably a better punter than Matt Hawk, but at the end of the day, it's punter. And it seems like we traded in the guy with the booming leg for a guy who might be a little bit better with the coughing corner. Maybe last year they were about equal. Statistically, percentage-wise, coughing cornering, but historically, Matt Hawk is a very good coughing corner punter, a guy who can place the ball inside the 20. I think he had a really good rookie year doing that. I don't have the stats in front of me because I just came straight from work here, so I don't have those stats in front of me, but I believe his rookie year, he was really good at pinning teams deep. So to me, it just seems like the Buffalo Bills wanted a guy for term, they wanted a guy for cheap, and they took a slight downgrade and a slightly different player in Matt Hawk because he was willing to do that. My thing is I have no idea what Bojo is thinking unless he can go out and get a contract, unless he's got a team lined up that's willing to pay him. Maybe there's a market for Bojo, but I feel like if there was, he would have been signed like that, and he hasn't been signed yet.
Yeah, that's good.
I just don't know. I'm really confused about what Borges was thinking, and he seems to be the only one. He seems to be the only one not in line. Like Brandon Beane offered Feliciano a deal. He offered Darrell Williams a deal. He offered Matt Milano a deal. They were all under market. And he said, go test the market. Hey, go test the market. And all three of those guys thought about it and said, you know what? I don't even want to test the market. I'll take that deal. It seems fair to me. Corey Borges is the only one who was like, bye. It seems like this is just not a place he wanted to be. So, yeah, good riddance, Bojo. Bye.
He had problems spinning the laces for a rookie kicker, so maybe Matt Hawk can do that a little bit better. Because I think I had it opposite in my mind, thinking that Hawk was the boomer and that Boho was a little bit more of the accurate guy, and thinking, oh, that means that the Bills aren't really going to punt once they reach their own 40. They're going to go for everything. But now that it's straightened out in my head, it really does not make sense to go without.
Maybe McDermott gets less aggressive. That could be one of the byproducts. Maybe McDermott doesn't want to be as aggressive. So maybe we'll all be cussing out Sean McDermott halfway through the season when he's punting instead of going for it.
Something tells me that Dave's won't let him turn into Doug Whaley or Doug Marone, excuse me, punting from the 35.
We got Truth to Hearts coming in saying Jets got a second round pick in the draft and could take Darnold and then trade out of the second pick and let Darnold and Tyrod battle. I think he's going for the Deshaun Watson. If of any of all the teams in the AFC East that I'd like Deshaun Watson, send him to the train wreck in New York. I guess they're a little better off now with Robert Saleh. I have a lot of respect for Saleh, but their owner is kind of not the greatest. So I don't know. Of all the places, I think New York would scare me the least. Then we got your boy Lettuce coming in. What's your boy Lettuce got to say?
Yeah, he says Hawk is a better athlete. Coffin corner doesn't really come into play with us. Either our drives die in the 3 and out or we end up in long field goal range for Bass. But I do think if you are more confident in your offense and you feel like you aren't going to be deep inside your own territory so much, then I could kind of understand this. But for me, like I guess I didn't really have a ton of issues like with the touchbacks. Like I really didn't. Like I was happier, I guess, if we were like pinned deep inside our own territory, that Bojorquez could boom one out past the 50 or out past the other teams opposing their own 40, right? Like if we're punting at the 50-yard line anyway, like, I mean, that's sad in itself, right? That we couldn't like really go for it or whatever. But like, if you're like we saw it in the Colts game, right? We got pinned down on that first drive in that playoff game. We got pinned down on that first drive, and we were on like the 3-yard line. And Bojorquez, you know, he got it out past the 50. I mean, like, so. I mean, for me, I understand the reasoning. If you want to get teams, you know, pinned inside the 20 more, statistically, it says Hawk is the better guy to do that. And like maybe if you have a couple of trick plays in your playbook, he's the better guy for it. But like, I think it came down to money, honestly. When in this case, I think Steve's right. I think they probably had an offer, a decent offer for Bojorquez, and it was less than the tender, and he didn't want to take it, and so they went and said, screw you, we're going to sign Matt Hawk to a 3-year deal for lower than what we were going to pay you anyway. So that's, you know, that'd be my best guess as to what happened. Bojo would skip kicks into the end zone from our own 40. Yes, he would. That was not one of his specialties, was getting kicks down inside the 20. So it's fine. I mean, look, it's Punter. Hopefully
we're not going to be punting very much.
I hope not. So hopefully it doesn't really matter. Do we even know who the Chiefs punter is? Does it matter? No. Like,
it's Tommy Townsend. I still have it written on my board from the AFC Championship game.
He's got
to erase.
He's got the long hair, right? Like I think,
or is that Bucker?
No, Bucker's got
it
short
Bucker
hair.
Or Townsend with the short
Bucker's
hair or the long hair?
Townsend has the long hair. Butker is short hair. Yeah. So.
All right,
but without it written on my board, I wouldn't have been able to tell you.
Fair enough.
Well, gentlemen, that should just about do it. We went a solid hour and a half tonight. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
Thank you, fellas.
Do you have like some water you want to plug? You guys, where do you ship to? Where do you ship that water to?
I mean, we ship FedEx all over the country, but nice little bottle of. It's so hard to see with the lights. That nice Divinia water. Thank you for the plug. Divinia water is my family's company. It is easy water. So if you think like tap water is like coal, since coal and diamond are the same element, carbon, our water is like a diamond. We've changed the bonds. It's easy, 4th phase water. And I cringe every time Josh Allen walks in with a certain brand of water and you see it in his hands. And I'm like pulling my hands out. Don't drink that crap. So I got to get a bottle in his hands.
Somebody asked if we're doing a mock draft tonight. We're not going to do it. We pushed an hour and a half. We're not going to do a mock tonight. This week is all about free agency. But I'll tell you what, I'll get on my phone right after this and I'll do up a draft and then I'll post it on Twitter for you. But nice. I'll tell you what, I'm not sitting in my typical podcasting chair and my back is about to give out. So
welcome to old age, Judge.
Yeah, I'm officially an old person here. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. You guys are freaking awesome. The comment section every week just absolutely blows up. You put up with all my technical bullshit today, trying to start the show on my cell phone and finally realizing my computer works here. So thank you for that. Thank you for putting up with the clicking. And last week it was the poker chip. So I will get that all. Straightened out. I promise. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.